Welcome, Army fans. This is Joe Iacano, along with 2018 grad and former Army offensive lineman Mike Houghton, here with GoBlackKnights.com. How you doing tonight, Mike?
Joe, I'm doing awesome. Thank you for having me on.
Good stuff. Thanks for being on with us. So why don't you bring the fans up to speed on what you've been doing since you graduated in 2018?
Yeah, so graduated in 2018. Decided to go athletic intern round at Use Maps. Worked with Chris Nichols there and a handful of guys from my class. Believe we went undefeated. We beat Navy, so that's all that really matters.
Nice.
From there, went to Fort Sill. I am a field artilleryman, pretty prominent in the field artillery or in the football world.
Yeah, I interviewed Aaron Alexander last week, and he called it football artillery, which I thought was pretty funny.
Yeah. So I was there for 6 months, and then PCS to Fort Bragg. Was there for roughly 3 years. Went back for Triple C at Fort Sill, and then PCS back to Fort Bragg. I was a PL and a fire support officer there, and then assistant operation officer when I got back after Triple C. I was in 1st Brigade, 3319, and then 2nd Brigade in 2319. And now I'm transitioning out and currently working at a internship with John Deere in their turf care facility.
Oh, cool. They, I think you mentioned initially originally you're from Chicago area. John Deere's pretty big up in Illinois too, right?
Yes, their headquarters are actually in Moline, Illinois, closer to the Quad Cities near Iowa. So it's Iowa and Illinois are big for John Deere, obviously for the corn and agriculture.
Cool, good stuff. Well, we talked about this a little bit before we got on air. So you are slimmed down big time from your playing days. What's your approximate current weight?
I usually fluctuate from about 230 to 240. As long as I'm below 240, it's a good day, and I'll be able to go into the weekend and be able to eat whatever I want.
Absolutely, understand that concept a lot. So, I was talking to our publisher, Charles Grievous, and we're going to get into a little bit about clearly your playing career back at West Point, starting offensive guard on the 2016 and 2017 teams, graduated in 2018. But before we do that, he brought up a really unique stat that I wasn't aware of. Now, your plebe year, apparently, you wore number 57, and you were credited with 3 tackles, including a TFL. Could you tell me the story behind that?
Well, actually, I believe that was Jordan Smith. So I was 57, and then there was a point where both of us could have been on the field at the same time. So me being the underclassman, I had to pick a new number going into it, which ended up being 69. And Jordan Smith was the one who I'm pretty sure was credited with that stuff. I'm not athletic enough to be on the defensive side of the ball.
That's pretty awesome. So, have you, since you graduated and, clearly lived all over the place in the Army, like most of us do right after graduation, have you had a chance to get back to any games at West Point since you've graduated?
When I was in AI, I was able to go to all the home games. So that was all obviously awesome. Army Navy that year as well. I believe they wore the black jerseys, Big Red 1.
Okay. Yeah.
But I was only able to go this past year when they played at Wake Forest in Winston-Salem. It was an unfortunate outcome, but it was still good to be able to see the guys on the field.
Yeah, that was not the best game of the year, but glad you got to go see them up close and personal. Yeah. How closely have you been able to follow the program, either on TV or streaming services or whatever, since you graduated?
Yeah, I try to watch every weekend. I mean, they usually play earlier in the day around noon, right after college game day. So I try to watch every weekend. The names are kind of slowly eluding me. I do know a few guys still there, but for the most part, they're all new faces that I'm still trying to recognize when they're actually playing on Saturdays.
Yeah, because if they've got graduation coming up this week, class of 23, so their plebe year would have been 19. So they might have been at the prep in 18 when you were there. Some of those guys. Yeah. Marquel Broughton, was he down at prep in 2018?
Yeah. That was one of our guys. Sam Barzak, Chris Frey, Shane Buckingham, good group of guys. But yeah, we were fortunate enough to be able to be around
Yeah,
them.
no wonder you went undefeated. That's a pretty good class. So
Yeah, they were pretty good, pretty athletic group.
yep, good stuff. So I've had the opportunity to interview a couple of your classmates. I've spoken with Alex Ackerman twice on here, and which of your classmates do you guys keep in touch with a lot? I mean, obviously Brotherhood's very close, but specifically around Army football Saturdays, do you guys have a group chat or anything like that going on?
Oh yeah, we have a few. I'd say we have one main one where everyone kind of chirps each other every now and then, kind of give a life update on it. In terms of people that I usually talk to every now and again, I talk with Bryce Holland, who's out here at Fort Bragg right now. Scott Washley, he was out here at Fort Bragg. Now he's moving back to Raleigh. Talk with John Voight, Joe Tustin, Josh Boylan. Lived with Josh Boylan for a while, so
Okay.
that's one thing that's nice about graduating. You do get spread across the country, but there are multiple times throughout your time of service where you run into your former teammates and you're able to catch up through several activities.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's funny when you rattled off those names, Mike, that's a mini all-star team of West Point grads during the Monken era. It pretty just shows how good the teams were during your tenure there. Speaking of which, so you started your plebe year was 2014, right? And then your final season was 2017. So you were really the class that probably experienced the turnaround the most, along with the class that followed you, maybe. To where, plebe year, you came in, you guys went 4-8, first year of the Monken era. Your yearling year, you guys were 2-10, but were close in a lot of ball games. I think that's when a lot of us kind of started to go, all right, things could be getting good here. And then, of course, the 2016 season will live fondly in the hearts of all Army fans. The year the streak was broken, the big win over Navy, big win in the bowl game, 8-5 season. Just a remarkable year that a lot of Army fans really remember well. And then, of course, your first year is when things really started to get good. Double-digit wins, 10-3, big win in the bowl game over San Diego State. In the last minute there with the sweet play to Kel Walker, I think, on the 2-point conversion. And then Elijah Riley kind of picking off the California band play there at the end and taking that in to seal it. They had Rashad Penny, who's still in the NFL, and that guy was unbelievable. And you guys won the Commander-in-Chief's trophy for the first time in 21 years with the big wins over Navy and the shutout at Air Force. So a lot of great memories to pick from. What is your greatest memory of your Army football career, Mike?
I'd say it'd have to be the snow game for when we played Navy, when we rocked the 10th Mountain jerseys.
Yeah.
The year before, obviously, that was an unbelievable game, unbelievable time to be around. It was unreal atmosphere. And that really kind of propelled us into the next season. And that's why I say the senior year was a little bit better. Obviously, that was the last two final games that our class were able to be a part of, and to be able to culminate that with the first CIC in I don't know how many years. It really was that is hands down the game that immediately comes to mind years later after my playing experience.
Yeah, that snow game was classic. I was actually on hand for that game. I had a really cool vantage point. I was sitting lower deck in the end zone, kind of right behind the upright that Navy missed the field goal at the end of the game on. So it felt like Cole Christensen and I were two of the first people that knew it wasn't going to be good. I was like, that thing ain't got the leg and it's fading left. This thing's over. So
that was wild. I remember looking at Josh Boylan thinking that they made it. We didn't even move off the bench. I was like, we were actually kind of mad for a second, and we realized that it was missed, and obviously we celebrated after.
Yeah, no, you're right. It's from that vantage point where you guys were on a bench, it looked like a solid kick.
Mm-hmm.
You couldn't tell unless you were like standing. Cole was in the back of the formation on defense,
Yeah.
and you couldn't tell unless you were standing from his vantage point that it wasn't going to be good. So it was kind of interesting. Yeah, that was a great game. Like you said, the 10th Mountain jerseys were perfect camouflage. There's I won't say it, but there was a play where Darnell Woolfolk may have false started and the refs missed it because they really couldn't see anything. You know,
yeah, we don't like to talk. We don't remember that play. We like to focus on the positive outcome of that. That's for sure.
Absolutely, and it's funny because you know, John Trainer, if you remember, he had that big run on third down to get you guys into, or maybe second down and long to get you guys into scoring position down there near the goal line for the go-ahead touchdown. And with all the ice and snow and everything, for him to kind of pirouette on the sideline there, that was an amazing play. Clearly, you're blocking, so you can't see what's going on.
No.
But what was kind of the reaction? Did you get to see it on the big board after the play, or?
Yeah, I think that was I think it ended up being a midline play. It wasn't designed for John, but obviously he was a third option. John is he's always been a guy that he's been a go-to guy for being able to get the ball. When he kind of tiptoed down the sideline, we were all a little bit worried through our vantage point, but I mean he just kept moving. The Navy defenders kind of stopped. They thought he was out too, and that's just a testament to the guy who John is, because he just kept moving forward trying to score.
So, Mike, you know, that first year for you, 2017, the mob, as you guys were called back in the day, the malicious offensive line brotherhood, really dominant, just dominant performances. I can't remember if you guys led the nation in rushing that year, but you were clearly right at the top.
Yeah.
You remember?
Yeah, we did.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
and I mean, it was so fun because I remember being at Air Force and I watched that one on TV. And I remember Jay Feely was the color commentator at the time, and he's laughing because it's halfway through the third quarter. You guys are dominating, but Coach Monken hadn't even attempted a pass yet. And I remember, I mean, everybody in the stadium knew every play was going to be a run, and a lot of them were going to be power straight up the middle. And you guys just whipped people's butts. I mean, including like Ohio State 99-yard drive.
Yeah.
Explain kind of the mentality that offensive line group had to just know you could go with anybody in the country and nobody could stop you.
Yeah, it was definitely I keep saying the word culmination. It was definitely a culmination from the 3 years prior. We had a lot of scar tissue that kind of built up through that time of losing, getting hurt, coming close, not finishing fourth downs, not finishing drives. And it was just we all experienced it through some time, whether it was us as a freshman year, Bryce getting hurt, he had to take a year off, came back later. Me and Toph were both battling injuries early on in our career, and so we never really kind of came together until our junior year, and then effectively our senior year. And it was definitely a mentality thing. Every day we knew each other. We knew what we were capable of, what we were going to do. If somebody was hurt, we'd hold them accountable to it, and we'd give them crap for it. We'd do anything we could to kind of keep everyone online and in check. But we knew each other very well through the scar tissue that we developed 3 years prior to that. That's for sure, and that's a big reason why we were able to kind of power through a lot of our games our senior year.
Yeah, so let's talk about something you just mentioned a little bit, because I do remember earlier on in your career, for sure, you had to battle a lot of injuries. Remember that, and then kind of, you know, by your first year, I think you were pretty healthy. I can't remember if you missed any games or not, but I don't recall any. You know, what was that like for you, that struggle, both, you know, physically, mentally, and emotionally, knowing you were a really good player, but it felt like for a couple of years, every time you'd get something going, something would go wrong?
Oh, I mean, it's extremely frustrating. You put in all the time in the off season, spring ball, it feels like a second job. You're throughout the summer, you're going through classes, you're working out, like you're getting stronger. You're seeing you're seeing yourself day to day, like actually getting better. But then when push comes to shove on Sunday or on Saturday, you're hurt and you can't do anything. It's extremely frustrating, especially watching your brothers go on the field and not be able to compete. So it was definitely hard for a little bit. The training staff there, strength and physical, were top notch. They were always there for you to be able to help and excel whenever you need to. As long as you showed them that you wanted to get better and healthier, they were there to help you out, and that was huge. Obviously, throughout our 4 years.
Very cool. So when you were a plebe there, and this question may or may not make sense just because it was your first year, but as a plebe, it was also Coach Monken's first year at West Point on the banks of the Hudson. Talk a little bit about that culture change and what that was like, and how easy or difficult it was to kind of install that mindset in the new team. Now, again, as a plebe, it meant you were like, well, this is all I know. But maybe from talking to some of the upperclassmen, if you could relate a little bit what that experience was like.
Oh yeah. So my prep school year was Coach Ellerson's year. So 2018, half of 2018's class was Coach Ellerson recruits. Mm-hmm. Obviously, he got fired. Then Coach Monken came in, spoke to us, said, "Hey, you guys still have a spot on the team, but you're still gonna have to compete for it. Nothing was earned, rightfully so." And moving into freshman year, plebe year, I mean, you heard 9-day differences from a guy like Matt Hugenberg and Justin Gilbert and Corey Hobbs, who was there for a while after. They would describe the way offensive line practices were, not even close to what we would have to go through. And then moving into freshman year, all we knew was to get smoked, to fight through injury, and to do everything you can to get on the field and make the depth chart. Because even if you were on the depth chart, that didn't mean you were starting that week. Doesn't mean that you were starting that position that week. So it was, you needed to understand the entire offensive line, the entire offense, to be able to show that you can play. And it took a while for those growing pains to actually ensue. Our sophomore year, the record was not that when we went 2-10, that was not an example of what we actually did. I feel like we lost 8 games from a 1 possession score.
Yeah, I mean, I specifically remember in Happy Valley losing to Penn State by 1 score, and you guys fumbled 7 times.
I think we set a NCAA record that day.
Yeah.
And it was hard. It was hard those first 2 years, but everyone kind of looked to the left and right of us and kind of understood that we still had an end goal in mind. That at that time it was beat Navy, and then after that it was Commander in Chief. Like we still had goals that we had to complete every week, whether we were hitting them or not. We identified that where we needed to work on, and it was definitely a learning experience that kind of propelled into going into the Army and working on our leadership experience for 100%.
That's funny. You just answered the next question I was going to ask, because I was going to go an entirely different direction. And then you started talking about all the lessons you learned having to overcome adversity. And I was going to ask you how that helped you out in your Army career as an officer. And clearly you kind of hit on that already a little bit, but didn't know if you wanted to expound on that a little more, and just kind of, some of the things you face as a platoon leader, a fire direction officer, fire support officer, some of the other jobs you held in the Army, where things are changing pretty fast. Maybe calling fire and it doesn't go quite right, or whatever else the case may be. How did kind of some of that help prepare you?
Yeah, I'd say the best leadership experience that you can get is being a part of a college team. At any level, it's peer leadership at its finest, and you really learn a lot about yourself, the way you communicate to your peers once you become an upperclassman, the way you communicate down to the lower levels with how do you want to be as a person and as a teammate, to kind of make sure the rest of the team is set for future years. And that is that was the biggest thing that I kind of took away moving into being a second lieutenant, is being authentic and making sure that when the doors close, I'm still the same person I was when I came out. And when adversity strikes, I'm still the same person as when things are going 100% okay. Not every plan is the way it should be, but I think Army football definitely set you up for success to be able to be a leader of men and build off your character that you develop throughout those years.
Absolutely. It's funny. I've been in the business world for a while now, and I always tell people hire D1 athletes. Highly recommended. So, anyway, so we're going to switch gears a little bit now, Mike. Okay. This offseason, Coach Monk and the Army program made another major change, which in my opinion took a ton of courage. As you know, based on new blocking rules around cup blocking the past few years, it's become more and more difficult to run the traditional flex bone offense that Coach Monken has run his entire career. So he made the difficult choice to replace your offensive coordinator, longtime OC Brent Davis, with Coach Drew Thatcher and Matt Drinkle, and install the new gun option attack. Can you give us your thoughts on the new version of the triple, what you know about it anyway, and what fans can expect as far as the learning curve maybe in this first season and installation for the cadets, and how fast maybe the players would adapt to a new offense like that?
Yeah, no, that's awesome. The most I know about the new offense is talking with Brett Toth. He's obviously very knowledgeable with his offensive line speak and his experience. And moving forward, I can only speak on the learning curve that would happen. I think the guys are going to be 100% prepared and be able to execute. And a lot of that's going to come down to repetition, which you need to be able to get after with captain-led practices, spring ball, that sort of thing, to be able to build up more scar tissue so you understand where you need to improve. I'm sure there's going to be guys on the line that are moving across left and right sides from guard to tackle to center, and there's going to be a learning curve, hands down. But hopefully I know they're going to be prepared enough to be able to kind of step out on the field and compete. Now it's just developing the technique necessary to be successful, which hopefully they can gather this offseason.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned playing different positions, because I interviewed Coach Drinkle after one of the spring practices and was asking him who was going to replace Connor Bishop at center, and he said all 5 linemen are being trained at all 5 positions. And he said one of the nice things about gun is a lot of these kids were used to it in high school, so they all know how to snap shotgun. A lot of them do, versus having that connection with the quarterback under center, where the timing's got to be a lot more specific in terms of the center QB exchange.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, our offense, the one that Coach Davis had, we still had zone plays. We still had some sort of modified triple option in the gun that we were able to learn off of. So the guys aren't going to be going in completely blind. They're going to be able to draw similarities within offenses to be able to kind of better prepare them for every Saturday.
Absolutely, which kind of gets to my next question. As an offensive lineman, you blocked in the traditional flex bone scheme, very low, fire off the ball, get to the second level, cut the linemen, cut the linebackers, combo blocks with the center, whatever it was. In this offense, especially from talking with some of the linemen in spring practice, it's a little more like what you see across D1 football, blocking RPO type plays, where there's definitely times where they fire out for sure, but there's other times where they're in more of a pass block set. Maybe their weight's distributed a little further back in their stance. How would you like blocking in an offense like this?
I think there's film to show that I would prefer to run the ball. There's definitely a specific type of skill and technique that you need to develop for that. And I have full faith that the coaching staff is going to be able to kind of prepare them for that. For me personally, it was a little bit more difficult, but I think these guys are athletic and strong enough to be able to do that with what these guys are coming out of the prep school at. They're massive. Chris Nichols is making sure that these guys are set up right going in, and it'll show on Saturdays for sure.
Yeah, Coach Drinkle said they were averaging well over 300 pounds on the offensive line this year at a spring ball. And I saw it. I saw a video on Twitter or Instagram. I have no idea who it was, but some kid at the prep got 34 reps with 225 with his feet up on the bench. I was like, those are like NFL numbers. I mean, that was crazy.
Yeah, these guys are massive. They're putting on some serious weight that I don't think I would ever even comprehend in the weight room.
Right.
So it is nice that they are getting the job done there.
All right. And Mike, final question for you. You know, again, you graduated in 2018, so you've seen, you know, and you coached at the prep school as an AI in 2018, which was a very successful team. And so since then, there's been 5 seasons, some of them great, some of them not so great in there. But overall, you know, the program's been pretty successful the last 7-8 years, starting really with your class and maybe even the class before you guys. But kind of give us your assessment as a former player on the current state of the Army football program and how you see the team doing the next couple of years, especially with some exciting changes on the horizon, including a newly renovated Mikey Stadium in 2025.
Yeah, no, that stadium looks amazing. Just looking at videos of that. But yeah, Army football is definitely at they're not, I wouldn't say a crossroad, but I mean, there's definitely an identity change going on. And these guys need to be able to embrace it. That's all that matters. Whether they ran the triple last year or whatever powered formation that they wanted to do, that doesn't matter. All that matters is the season that's coming up and the guys in the locker room that are willing to help make that change and hold each other accountable in the locker room. That's all that really matters. And hopefully they embrace that change of Army football and really hone in on the next era. I remember when I was going through my sophomore year, we changed the logo, and that was kind of like a new changing of the tides kind of thing. But these guys need to embrace what's kind of coming for them. It's exciting for these players as long as they embrace the challenge and they step up to it. It'll be awesome to see them react to it.
Good stuff, Mike. So I know that I said that was final question, but I do have one more for you. Now that you're a civilian, are you going to be able to make it to any of the games this year, or Navy, or anything like that?
Oh yeah, I got two circled right now. It's the LSU game down in Baton Rouge. That's an experience that is a bucket list type.
Yep.
So that one, as well as the Boston Army Navy game. We never had the opportunity to play in Boston. It was always Baltimore or Philly. So checking out a new city at Gillette Stadium would be amazing. So those are the two that are circled on my calendar right now.
That's exciting. I'll actually be at both those games, so I'm super pumped about both of those as well. Well, Army fans, thanks for sticking with us tonight. It was a honor and a pleasure, as Ben Houghton would say, to interview former Army offensive guard Mike Houghton. And we will see you next time here on GoBlackKnights.com. Go Army, beat Navy.
Beat Navy.